Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this time out, we're going to take a look at some of my new favorite features and the new version of Studio One 5.4. So it came out about a week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I haven't did a video on it because so many people have done a video on the features. You've seen it over and over and over again, but lots of you has asked me, you send me emails going, have I updated? What do I think? Am I having problems? What things do I like about it? Are there some features that I wish they could have added? There are a couple. What don't I like about it? There's a couple things. So I figured, okay, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'll do a video. So I look at these updates from Studio One, or PreSonus as it were, as more from a mixing engineer's perspective, because that's 90% of what I do. There are a lot of features that the PreSonus adds to this every single time they do an update, which really help with songwriting, things like the chord charts and so things that I don't personally use, but I've seen some video on them and they're awesome. So you want to go check out some of those other videos. I'm just going to show you the features that I appreciate as part of my daily workflow, mostly as a mixing engineer. So that's what we're going to look at today. So I think we got about 7 things that I like that I think will help me, and things that I'll use quite often, and things that you should be aware of. And then there's a couple of things I don't like about it, or things I wish they would add that I don't know what's taking them so long. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. But before we get to that, if you like what you see in the video, please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell so you know when I post new content. Also, if this is your first time here, I want you to go out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and I want you to get your free mixing course. It's right on the homepage. It's worth about $100. It's my gift to you just for visiting HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. And seeing as we're celebrating the new release or new update of Studio One version 5.4, if you're a Studio One user and you're someone new to Studio One, whether you have version 3, 4, or 5, artist, professional, or prime, and you want some beginner training to help you get started with Studio One with no fuss and no muss, make sure you check out my specific Studio One courses on my website at HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. I'll put a link in the description box below, but if you go to the website, click on the training courses link at the top of the page, it'll bring you right to them. So now let's jump into Studio One. Let's talk about some of these features. So got 7 things that I think are really great improvements here. And the first one is something that's great for all of us Apple users, all the M1 support. So now Studio One 5.4 is officially has M1, the M1 chip, the new Apple chip. They're not using Intel processors anymore. So this is going to support and be more compatible, if you will, with the M1 chip. Now on this particular machine that I'm using, this is my iMac my iMac Pro from 2117 with an Intel chip. However, on my other workstation behind me over my shoulder, over at my SSL, I have a brand new 2020 Mac Mini with the M1, and I was running Studio One 5.2 on it, and honestly, it ran quite stable. I've now updated to 5.4 and it runs great as well. So I know it has M1 support, so that's good for all of our Mac users. So that's something that you ought to be aware of. So that's the first feature that I think is a really good welcome update, because now with Mac, everything is the M1, and the M1 chip is awesome. And so there you go. The second thing that I think is a great feature, which is multi-export file types. So you can export now, when you want to export your song, multi-file types all in one pass. Let me show you if you haven't seen this yet. So we're going to go to song here, and we're going to do export mixdown. And now our dialog box looks a little different. There's a few added sections here. So over in the format section, right now I have MP3 checked off, and I can choose my sample rate and my bit rate. But now I can also, in one pass, I can choose my WAV file. So if I want my WAV file to be gone, if I want an AIFF file, I can do that as well. Right? If I want to do all these file types, I can do them all at the same time in one pass. The rest of the dialog box is the same, but this saves you from having to export your MP3 for your website, or to email one of your bandmates and then export a high-res WAV file or a FLAC file or what have you. You can do it all in one pass, and that is wonderful. The other thing I like about this too, which is an update to this little dialog box or export mixdown, which wasn't part of the previous version. Let's say I go to do an export mixdown and I check off my file types and I set all my resolutions and sample rates. And then before I hit OK to go ahead and do that export, I say, oh geez, I forgot to mute a track, let's say. If you would cancel this, go and make your change in your session and then go back, what used to happen, let me go here, is that anything that you did in your format section would be reset, and you'd have to re-choose the file type, re-choose the sample rate and the resolution. That has now been fixed. So wherever I leave off here, if I cancel and go back, it will stay the same, so I don't have to re-choose my resolution, my sample rate, and my format file type, which I think is awesome. So that's a really nice feature, really, really nice. I like that, very convenient. I'm constantly, whenever I'm doing stuff for clients, I'm always doing WAV files and MP3s and different file types, and to be able to do it all in one shot is just awesome. So that's the second thing that is a really welcome, improved feature. The third one, which I thought was really cool, I've been asking for this one for a while, is when you are using your sends, now you have the ability, you've always had the ability with inserts to remove all of your inserts from multiple tracks all at the same time, but with the sends, you had to go into each track individually and remove the sends individually. Now you can do them all at once. So in the past, you would have to, and you can see here I have a couple of examples set up here, where I have a few vocal tracks going to a few different reverbs. In the past, you would have to go in one at a time and do the drop-down arrow, go to remove, go to the next one, drop-down arrow, do remove. Now you can select your first track, hold down your shift key, select your third track here, and I can remove all of these sends in one swoop. I come to any one of these drop-down arrows and I say remove, up, and they all go away on that layer. And if I go remove again, it'll take them all away. That's pretty cool. You could always do that with inserts, but you could never do that with sends. And then if you want to undo that, you just do Command Z and there you go. So that's another little speedy way to speed up things. And I think that's awesome. So that's another great feature. The next feature, which I think is pretty cool, I didn't have a need for this all the time, but I like the feature, is now with our bus channels, you can change them from mono to stereo with multiple buses selected at a time. So again, in the past, if I had my drum buses stereo, and let's say my bass bus, I wanted it to be I'd have to go through and change each one individually, right? If I wanted to change them. Now I can hold down, select all of my tracks, and I can click one of them and they'll change from mono to stereo. And when you change them to mono, you'll see anything that's been routed to those buses, your pan pot goes away, which makes sense. So that's pretty welcome. You don't have to go do it individually one at a time. I like that feature. That is the, what is that? That is our fourth feature. The next feature, which I think again could be really, really handy, is they've updated the plugin manager. And if we come to our view, our plugin manager, you will see here a few different things. We have a couple of tabs here. We have all our plugins. And we can filter them by the type, by the vendor, or we can select them all. We can search them. That's all been done before. But what I like here now is now you can see the version numbers of the plugins that you have installed. This is great for you third-party plugin users, which I am. You can also see when it's been modified last. And if we click on the statistics tab, you can see the last time that you've used that particular plugin. Now, I will say, as I updated this, I went through and I removed my plugin settings, restarted Studio One, so it will rescan all your plugins. And this is important if you haven't done this. If you want to see the most updated information of all your plugins, you want to remove the plugin settings by clicking this button. Then you want to relaunch Studio One, and it will go through and scan all your plugins the first time through. And it'll take a little longer depending on how many plugins you have. I have about 900, I think, or so. And it took about, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. It'll scan all the plugins again like it's scanning them for the first time. Okay, and then it'll update all of the statistic information. So now the one thing that I will say is as I did that and relaunched Studio One and went through the last used column, which I think could be really handy if you want to see what plugins you don't use anymore. Maybe you want to consider getting them off your system and cleaning up your system. Or just to see what plugins have you forgotten about. One of the problems with having a ton of plugins, you don't know what you have after a while. You could go through and you can see that here. But I will tell you that a few of these I don't think are accurate, only because I can remember using these plugins very recently. Things like the FabFilter Pro DS Mono 5 months ago, I used that about 2 weeks ago. So I don't know where this is pulling from. Now I know that you'll see that there's different types, like here's the VST, VST3, and if you have the audio unit installed, it'll show it 3 times, and maybe each one of those instances, one for audio units, one for VST. You may have used those at different times, and therefore the last use date will be off. And then some of them don't show at all, and I'm not really sure why. Here's all audio units that are installed on the system. Maybe it has never been used. Maybe that's why it's blank. But I did notice that a few of these, I don't think it's as accurate as you would think. But anyway, it gives you the ability to see that, which is really cool. And again, you can see what versions of the plugins that you have installed. You can sort them by name, by vendor, by folder. So they've just improved the plugin manager, which I think is really cool. You have your block list that you can reset. It gives you an opportunity, at least for me, to go through and kind of purge some of my old plugins that I don't use anymore and have no plans on using. And I'm going to do a whole video on a plugin purge pretty soon. So that's the plugin manager. New and updated, gives you a little bit more information. Really, really cool, good, useful thing. The next thing we want to talk about, which is a big one for a lot of folks that maybe have an older computer, and that is called the plugin napping feature. And what that does is, let me show you here, we'll come down to our performance monitor, and I got a bunch of plugins in this session. Okay, when you open this at first, the show devices is not going to be checked here. So let me show you what it's going to look like. You'll see what all the plugins I have. I'm running about 7% here. And this will be defaulted, by the way, too. You want off. You want to turn this on, plugin nap, and then you can show your devices. And what that's going to do, it's going to show you all the plugins in your session. And really what this is, and this is pretty clever. When audio is not playing, like in our case, our session's not playing back, and or if audio is not passing through a specific plugin on a specific channel, right? Let's say your background vocals come up in the third chorus and you got a bunch of plugins on your background vocal audio tracks as inserts. Well, you start the song off, we're not going to play those background vocals for 2.5 minutes, let's say, right? The audio's not going to get, the playhead's not going to get to that audio. The plugins on that track is going to go into nap mode, and it's not going to activate until audio is passing through it. And you can see that by the little moon here, the little half-shaped moon next to here. That means it's napping. And that means your plugin performance monitor is going to reduce. So your CPU is not going to be taxed unless there's audio passing through the plugin. Now, the videos that I've seen on YouTube so far showing this feature, everyone only shows the stock plugins from Studio One. And I was wondering, does it work with third-party plugins? It does work with third-party plugins. So again, that's huge. Why is that huge? Let's say you're someone like me who likes to use lots of channel strips and you like to do kind of an analog style workflow with lots of tape machines and channel strips and maybe console emulation, those types of things. When you put all those plugins across all your tracks, if you don't have a lot of RAM and a fast processor and you have an older computer, it could bog down your computer. You can have all kinds of problems. One workaround is to do some consolidation and stuff to not have as many instances, but this particular napping feature is going to help that, because if there's not audio passing through some of those plugins at certain parts of the song, it's going to reduce the CPU load. And I think that's a brilliant idea. It's a great job, PreSonus. That was one I never thought of as a feature, but really helpful. So you could see right here that we're not playing anything right now. So we're at 7% as our CPU. Now, as soon as I play audio back, you'll see it goes to 9%. You'll see the little half moons go away for the audio that's passing through the plugins. And as soon as I shut off the audio, you'll see the little moons will start to come back. Okay, so this is really cool. So if you want to know, if you're having some problems with audio artifacts or your computer bogging down and you want to know what plugins are taking up the most amount of resources, this is great. So make sure you enable plugin nap and make sure you turn on your show devices and you can see all the plugins. You can see the latency, you can see the plugin, what track it's on. Really, really handy, very cool feature. So that's the plugin manager and the plugin nap. And the last feature I want to show you that I really like, number 7, is the ability to send some diagnostic and crash reports to PreSonus to help. So sometimes, and I get this a lot because I do a lot of, Zoom consult sessions and training sessions with students when they're having issues with their version of Studio One crashing and they're not sure why it's crashing, and they fill out a support ticket with PreSonus, and the PreSonus has to ask them a whole bunch of questions to help diagnose what's going on with their system. One feature that they added, which was really cool that I didn't even know existed, is if you come over the help section here, you could go to, where is it here? Create Diagnostics Report. And you're going to get a dialog box here, and you can check off the different things or unselect the things that you don't need. But what if you're having all kinds of problems and you're not sure what's going on with the system and you want to send PreSonus, the tech support team, information about your computer, you want to have these things checked off here. And then you hit OK, and what it's going to do, it's going to create, has a diagnostics folder inside of the Studio One folder, and you'll see it'll have a zip file, and then you could send that zip file to the PreSonus support team. They'll be able to open that up, and they'll see all the information about your system and what's going on with your system to maybe more easily diagnose any technical computer problems that you may be having. That's huge. And that really helps out the PreSonus team, and it helps you get a resolution even faster than you did before. So those are the 7 things that I like. So now, what don't I like? What do I wish that they would add? There's a couple things. Probably one of the biggest ones that I love in other DAWs like Luna and like Pro Tools is this. We talked a little bit about the sends, and where you can remove all the sends at the same time. That's wonderful. The one thing I hate about Studio One and always have are these little send levels, these little itty bitty sliders that you got to click your mouse on and you got to move. It's hard to see if you're on a small screen. It's really of a challenge to see it. Luna, Universal Audio, Pro Tools, and some other DAWs have the ability to either have a pot, like a pan pot, or you can choose a fader where an actual fader pops up. You can expand your send section, and these things will turn into little mini faders, like little miniature short faders like you would see on a console. Much easier to use, much easier to see. I really wish they would do something with the send levels. I hate this. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I've always hated it. I've asked about it before. I wish they can do that maybe in version 5.5 or version 6 when that comes along. I would love them to put the ability to show the fader, an actual fader. Maybe you can right click on it and you can show the fader, or some way to do that. Now, again, it's going to chew up a little more real estate here, and you'd have to expand your send section, but we have the ability in Studio One to really expand the mixer. So if you just have a track going to a reverb or two, you can shrink down your mixer, you can expand your send levels, and you should be able to get at least a little fader cap as opposed to these little dopey send sliders. I know, I'm picky, but I hate that. I really wish they would do that. The other thing that they kind of started doing in version 5, but they haven't taken it all the way, and once again, I have no idea why. They got to get this right. On stock plugins, any plugin that they have that is considered a tool, like the level meter, like the phase meter, like the scope, you can come down in the bottom right-hand corner and you can resize the window. Brilliant. Every plugin company should do this. More and more third-party plugin companies are coming along. I love that Studio One did this. However, they don't do it on the most basic ones that you use all the time, like the compressor, like the Pro Q. These are not resizable. Now, again, on my particular screen with my resolution, the way it's set, this for me personally is okay. But when I'm working on a laptop or I'm working on another screen, I want to be able to bring and spread out this window. Why did they do it with, it seems like, and again, I could be wrong if someone from PreSonus is watching, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. It seems like only the utility and the meters and what I would consider the tools are resizable. I don't see any of the regular plugins, like the Reverb plugin, same thing. I don't see where that is resizable. You should make every plugin window resizable. That would be really cool. And again, for any third-party plugin manufacturer that may come across this video one day, you got to do the same thing. More and more of you are doing it. It really helps, especially for people working on smaller screens where the real estate's not as good. They can shrink it down, or if the resolution's small and you're having a hard time seeing it, you can blow it up and shrink it down when you're not using it. That would be a really good thing. So those are the 2 things that I really wish Studio One would add to there. For, you know, the things for me, I'm sure you guys have others. But overall, a great update. Oh, and the last thing I want to show you, which I think they fixed, and this was a problem when version 5 first came around, and you can go back and watch my videos when version 5 first came out. One of the problems that I was having was 2 particular plugins, VSTs. It seemed like they were both tune tracks, Easy Drummer 2 and Superior Drummer. Go back and watch the videos where I talked about plugin issues or plugin crashing issues in Studio One version 5. These 2 plugins, for whatever reason, were kind of jittery. Or the instruments, not plugins, the virtual instruments were kind of jittery. They were kind of stuttering along the screen. I talked to PreSonus back when version 5 came out. They claimed it was a TuneTracks issue. We talked to TuneTracks. They claimed it was a Studio One issue, right? Everybody going like this. It's your fault. It's your fault. Anyway, I haven't updated Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer since those videos about a year ago. Studio One version 5.4, they work perfectly. No hesitation. When I used to click on this, it would be like a latency. None. Works perfectly. Both Easy Drummer 2, and Superior Drummer 3. Again, have not updated these. And the way I would test it is I would just take the window and drag it around. See how nice and smooth it is? In the videos where I was showing the problems we were having, it was kind of stuttering across the screen. These are the same versions of those instruments that were in those original videos, and now they work perfectly in 5.4. They used to work perfectly in version 4.5. As soon as we got to version 5, there was a problem. Version 5.2, there was still a problem. Version 5.4, at least for me, no problem. Same operating system, same computer, same version of the instruments. The only thing that has changed is from version 5.2 to 5.4, and now they seem to work perfectly. Some of you's had problems with these two plugins or these two instruments in the past. Some people, it worked just fine. Mac, PC, didn't matter, was kind of all over the place. Could never figure out what the problem was. And actually, for the time being, I ended up going to Steven Slate SSD5 and staying away from TuneTracks because it didn't work in Studio One 5. Now it seems to be working fine. So I don't know why. That's a good thing. I don't know if that just happened by accident over at PreSonus, but whatever you guys did, it now seems to be working, at least for me. So that's a wonderful thing. So overall, I think it's a great update. Again, Studio One is still, again, people ask me this a lot because in my mixing membership website, mixingmadeeasy.net, every month I'll use a different DAW because I have them all. Because for what I do for a living, I have lots of clients that send me sessions and all the different DAWs. So I have them all. And I use them all from time to time. And people still ask me to this day, especially if you're somebody who's new or getting into digital recording for the first time, what DAW do I recommend? And I still say, even with all the little quirky things that happened in the first version of Studio One 5, which really was the buggiest version of Studio One that I've ever used, and I've been a user of Studio One since version 2, all the way up through version 4.5, it was always flawless. Version 5, I had lots of little issues with them. We cleared them up over time, but now version 5.4 seems to be better. But I still believe that Studio One is still the best DAW from an intuitive workflow standpoint for new folks, for overall stability, whether you're using Mac or PC. And again, I know some people have issues. I know everybody's computer's a little different in the software and the operating system and the hardware. I get it. But for me personally, it is still the most stable DAW, hands down. I still feel it's the easiest to learn for someone who is new. And out of all the DAWs that are out there, it's still my favorite and the one I use the most. The one that I would love to be a little bit more involved with, not so much here at Home Recording Made Easy. I'm going to stay a Studio One guy, but for over at my SSL over at Mixing Music Analog, that's another YouTube channel I have, I really wanted to get into Universal Audio Luna, and I started to use it. It's still got a ton of bugs. It doesn't work very well. I think they're one of the only other DAWs that has something that's really new and cool and unique, but you have to be a Universal Audio hardware owner, an Apollo owner to even get Luna. So for most of you watching that video, that's not something that's going to apply to you. And Luna is just not ready for prime time yet. I've been testing it, but Studio One, I still think is. And last but not least, I still feel that from an online resource support point of view, from a company point of view, as far as getting support when you need it, I still feel PreSonus is better than any company that's out there. The only other company that even comes close to them, I will say, is Universal Audio. They seem to be really good as well. Their Luna support seems to be good. But again, they're the new kids on the block in the DAW world. But Studio One to me and PreSonus is still the best. They are by far. And I know some of you, because you've written me emails and or you have hired me to do Zoom training with you because you say you can't get support from Studio One or from PreSonus, I should say. But I got to say that those types of situations that I hear about are very few and far between. Most people, and even myself, when I try to contact support at PreSonus, you get someone to respond to you and to help you in pretty quick order. Some of what I think they did in this update with the diagnostic report and such is going to help you get to your result and to your resolution faster. But I still think they're at the top as far as for the home studio person, for the person who's new, for the person who wants just wants to turn it on and they want to work and they don't want to have all kinds of stability issues and such. I still think Studio One is still the best game in town. And no, this is not a sponsored video. I pay for all of my Studio One stuff. They don't give me software. They don't give me anything. I just really think that they are really, really good, and I recommend it all the time. So if you're watching this video and you're considering switching to Studio One, or you're getting into your DAW for the first time and you're not sure what to choose, I would tell you try Studio One. Doesn't matter whether it's the prime, the artist, or the professional. It doesn't matter. They're all pretty much the same, just with some added additional features. So anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of this new 5.4. Let me know what version of Studio One that you're using and what kind of problems, if any, are you having. And maybe we can help each other out in the comments if we still have some folks out there that are having some issues. And if you're someone who is actually using one of the M1 chips for Studio One version 5.4, how's that working out for you? This is an Intel processor on this particular machine, so I couldn't demonstrate anything as far as that goes, but I'd love to know what you guys think below. And until the next video, I've been Dave with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and I'll see you guys really soon. Take care, everybody.